Hi, this is Dusty Wallace from Denison Media Technology Services, and today I'm in Higley 326 to go over how to get started in a digital eClassroom. For those of you who have taught in Higley before fall 2017, you may remember that all of the classrooms were, with the exception of the auditorium, all analog rooms with the traditional push-button plates and so on. Those are still active and in use in other places throughout campus. For example, like Fellows and eBall still have a bunch of those rooms, as well as some various other places throughout campus. But more and more, we're getting to the digital platform in our eClassrooms. We're really excited about it. We already have a tutorial video up for how to get started in an analog eClassroom. So if you're like in Barney Davis, you're in eBall, you're working in one of those analog classrooms, please go ahead and watch that video. We'll have a link to it in the bio of this. But today, let's get started on how to get going in a digital eClassroom. So far, all I've done is log in to the Podium computer, which in this room is an iMac. But first thing now is we are going to press to get started here on the interactive touch panel. So you'll notice it looks kind of like a tablet, kind of looks like an iPad, but it is just an interactive display and control surface for you for the entire room. So the first thing you're going to do is press to begin on the power button. You may notice that you heard a little kind of whining noise, and that was the sound of one of our new Panasonic laser projectors firing up in the room. The nice thing about these projectors is that you're going to have a really bright image even in a room like Higley 326 where there's a lot of natural light. It's a HD projector, just beautiful, quiet, and the up and down times are a lot quicker than what the analog projectors do. So what you'll notice is that the iMac, or in some rooms the Podium PC, will be what's going ahead and defaulting to the display here in the room. So we'll walk into that to get it into the frame. You'll notice the desktop image being shown on the display behind me. So that will be the default when you first power up. But from there you can choose which display device you want to use. So in this particular room and in all the new digital rooms like here and in Talbot, you have the option to plug in a laptop with an HDMI cable, a mini DisplayPort cable, which is also sometimes known as Thunderbolt 2 if you're a Mac user. You also have USB-C, which you may also know as another form of DisplayPort, or as Thunderbolt 3 if you're a Mac user. And then we have the legacy VGA connection, which is the only analog connection for laptop in the new digital eClassrooms. You also have Blu-ray, depending on your classroom, DVD, VCR, document camera, and also, again, depending on your classroom, a Kramer Via, which is the wireless connectivity option, which, again, we'll have a link to that tutorial video in the bio as well. So let's go over some of the functions when it comes to the display on the iMac. Right now, I happen to have it in extended display. So what that means is we could actually put something different on the display than what you're seeing on the desktop. So, for example, if I wanted to open up Safari on my desktop, but I wanted to put iTunes up and agree to those forever license agreements, I can pull that over and just share that with the class. So if you're taking notes, or maybe you're on the admin side of Notebowl and you don't want your class to see exactly what you're doing, but want to show them something else, the extended desktop is a good way to go. Otherwise, you could go to what's kind of more the default in the eClassrooms, which is going to a mirrored display. So let me show you how to do that. We will close iTunes real quick. We're going to go to our system preferences, which is that little gear down in your dock. Then we're going to click Displays. I always find it easiest to go ahead and hit Gather Windows, because right now you're going to have a display panel showing up for your desktop, for your Podium machine, And then you're also going to have the display preferences for your extended display or for the projector that's going through our Extron system. So if we come back here and hit Gather Windows, it's going to pull the windows for each to us right here on our main display. So what we want to do if we want to switch back and forth between having these displays mirrored or if you're a PC user duplicated, hit Arrangement and then click Mirror Displays. Now you'll notice that it's defaulting to be scaled to the display that is the projected display, basically giving optimal resolution, refresh rate, etc. for the display that the rest of the class is seeing. So you can see now we have the same exact thing on our desktop as we do on the projected image. You'll notice that when you do that, depending on your room, you might get little black sidebars. That's just because the resolution has scaled itself to match what's going up onto the projector. So we could get out of there. Just Control-click to get out of your system preferences. And we will close Safari for now, because now we want to take a look at some of our laptop cables. First one, laptop 1, HDMI. You'll notice that we do have these labeled, so you know exactly what you're plugging into. Laptop mini display port, again also known as Thunderbolt 2. And laptop USB-C, which is also, again, a different type of display port, also known as Thunderbolt 3. And then we have our legacy cable, if you will, the only analog one, our VGA laptop. I would say that your VGA laptop cable is going to be the one that you want to use only if you have to. It's the only analog one. VGA doesn't naturally carry audio, so it's a separate adapter, a separate jack to plug into the laptop headphone output. So I would stay away from using the VGA if you can, if you absolutely need to use it. It is still here. It'll work fine, but again, it's not as seamless and not as high quality of an image as if you were to go with one of the digital options. HDMI, USB-C, and mini DisplayPort all also carry audio within them, so you don't have to worry about plugging into your headphones or anything like that. So let's take a look at some of our laptop connectivity options. If you're working with an older MacBook Pro, perhaps a MacBook Air, anything 2016 or before, most of you are going to have the mini DisplayPort or Thunderbolt 2 jacks on the side, as well as potentially HDMI. Newer MacBooks are going to be using the USB-C cable, which we have integrated in many of the classrooms. But let's go ahead and plug in using the HDMI line. Now you'll notice when I plug in that my screen flashes for a moment and then comes back up. And it might look a little scaled a little differently. That's just because it's reading what's called the EDID, or basically the display properties of the projection system, and scaling for it. From there we go to our touch panel. We're going to hit laptop 1, HDMI. You might see that EDID bump again. And now you'll see that we're displaying up here on the projected screen. Right now, just like we showed earlier with the system settings, I'm set to mirror at this point. But let's take this opportunity to take a look at some of the audio settings. So when you plug in an old VGA line in an analog eClassroom or even in here, you're using that headphone port output on your laptop. But when you're looking at a Mac or a PC even that's using a digital out like HDMI, mini DisplayPort, or USB-C, your audio is going to come through that same line that your video is coming through. So let's go ahead and go to System Preferences again. This time we're going to click Sound. And you might notice that you have several options of what you can send to. We want to send to the Extron HDMI. Sometimes it might say Extron Scalar D, depending on how new or old this digital eClassroom is, but you always want to send out through the Extron send so it comes through the speakers in the classroom. The same thing would go on a USB-C line, same thing would go on the mini DisplayPort line. But since USB-C is the newest of the technologies that we're using for display, let's go ahead and fire up a PC and plug into that USB-C line. For those of you who are using one of the Elite X2s, which is the HP 2-in-1 device where you can take the keyboard off and use it like a tablet, that comes natively with USB-C and one USB-A port on the tablet or screen portion of the device. What's really nice about using that is you don't have to walk around with your dongles or anything anymore if you're teaching in a digital space, because we could just use the USB-C that we have integrated into the classroom. And again, you could contact the help desk if you need to figure out what rooms may have USB-C and which don't. So I'm going to close some windows here, and I'm going to plug into the USB-C line. It'll be kind of similar to the HDMI line. You'll see that EDID bump just like we saw on the Mac where it flashes and comes back up. We're going to select laptop USB-C, and then we'll walk over to the screen, and you'll see again we have my desktop displaying both on the projector and on my machine itself. Just like always, if you need to switch between duplicate or going to the extended desktop, right now we're in a duplicate setting, it's actually a little quicker on a PC than a Mac. All you have to do is hit Windows P, and on the right hand side of the screen you can set it to duplicate, which again means what you see on your screen is what will be on the projector, or you can set to extend if you would like to see something different on your screen than what's being presented to the class. The last thing I'd like to show you is just some of the remote features that are on the touch panel when it comes to using DVD, VCR, Blu-ray. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Blu-ray itself. You'll have play, pause, seek, skip, stop, your open and close, your pop-up menus, titles, all that sort of stuff, all right here on the touch panel. You'll notice too that if you are in a room that has a VCR, if you go to the VCR, obviously VCR has fewer options, but they are all routed so you don't have to use a remote or anything like that. It's all right here on the touch panel. So we'll go ahead and go back to the iMac and go over just a couple more things. First, you'll always have your volume here on the right hand side, so up, down, and mute. You'll also have display on and off and a display mute. So for example, if you need to log into something, maybe you don't want your students to see you typing in your email address or a password into something, all you need to do is hit the mute on the projector, and that will kill the image on the screen, keeping the image up on your machine, whether it's the podium computer or a laptop. But what it won't do is actually turn the projector all the way off. And that's really important. If you turn the projector all the way off, there's a cool down time and a warm up time. So if you just need to mute the screen real quick to hide something that you're typing, or just to kill the display for students to shift their attention elsewhere, it's best to just hit mute. And then as soon as you click the mute button again, it'll come back on the screen just like normal. When you hit off, it'll actually start the shutdown sequence for the whole system. So once you are done in your class or doing your presentation and you're ready to shut everything off, remember, don't forget to log out of the iMac or the PC, and then you are going to hit System Off. It's going to confirm if you really want to shut down. We are sure we want to shut down, and then everything will shut down in sequence. If you do accidentally hit shutdown, you don't mean to turn off the projector, the nice thing about the digital eClassroom is the shutdown, the cool down, and warm-up times are so much shorter. They're only about 10 or 15 seconds to cool down and about 30 seconds to warm up. So if you do errantly hit a button, don't worry about it. It could come back up really quickly. As always, if you have any questions about the technology in any of the eClassrooms or teaching labs, please contact the ITS Help Desk.